Hello everyone, my name is Vincent Briatore. Thank you for tuning in. Today I wanted to discuss a serious topic, and that's the topic of discrimination against men. Is there discrimination against men? Well, I will lay out some facts and make you guys make up your own mind. However, I would like to open with a story from 2011 that really touched my heart. And there is actually, astonishingly enough, it's not rare. Okay, the case is the case of a New Hampshire man by the name of Thomas Bell, who set himself on fire in front of the family court to protest his treatment in the family court. He actually authored a letter that was then sent to a local newspaper, and I have a link to it if you'd like to read this letter. Apparently, he was mistreated. He felt like the court was biased, and not for nothing, in favor of the woman. He lost custody of his children, and after the divorce and everything, he just couldn't take it anymore. And as a sign of protest, literally set himself on fire on the steps of the courthouse. He's dead. He died. This is not uncommon. There's another similar case that happened in Wellington in the UK where a man set himself on fire on the courthouse steps of the parliament or whatever. This was in Wellington, I believe. Wellington. Anyway, there's also a New Zealand man that set himself on fire to protest family court. This is happening. This is happening all over the world. All over the world. I think family court and the no contest divorce is a crime against men, and it has to be addressed. We are literally. How do you never hear this kind of stuff in mainstream media? How come you don't hear it happening all the time? I'm telling you, it's a serious issue when people are setting themselves on fire. Now, let's go back to the main issue at hand and talk a little bit about why I believe that there is a war on men and masculinity in this country and in the world. Most of us, I think, if you've been around this earth for any measure of time, you've probably known a man who has committed suicide. This seems like an epidemic. As a matter of fact, 75% of all suicides are committed by men. This rise started, I have some data here. From 1997 to 2014, there was a 43% rise in male suicides. But nobody wonders why. Nobody wants to do any research on it. Nobody even addresses, really, this issue. Okay, another thing is you might have heard about is the American epidemic of the criminal justice system and mass incarceration. This also is a problem that virtually affects only men, since 90% of prisoners and individuals who are incarcerated are also men. Listen, these problems are complex, but we know that they're rooted in the educational system. 1 in 5 boys is diagnosed with ADHD or some form of hyperactivity disorder and medicated. I think that boys are targeted for discipline and seen as troublesome, more so than women. And this starts at a young age. Now, we can debate whether it's causation or correlation, but it's definitely alarming. They did a recent study and found that female teachers in elementary school tend to give lower grades to their male students. They did the study, and this, I think, instills in boys that school is not for them. And this has very wide repercussions. Now, only 33% of college and university enrollees are male. You heard this right. Over 60% of people attending university and higher education institutions are actually female. The majority of the population is female. Not saying anything, but yet still, universities, almost every university funds women's studies groups, gender studies, female studies, and safe places on campuses where the sole focus is to destroy this perceived male power. I find all of these things very troubling. This goes on. This is not just university. Female enrollees are now the majority in law school, medical school, graduate school, and for doctorate degrees. The more you go up, the more you feel that separation, that distinction, that percentage that gap gets wider and wider. Now, one of the main, if not the sole, because feminism and these groups, a lot of times they want to claim issues that are either affecting women in other countries or affecting the United States in the past. But one that is always clung to to show this patriarchy in the United States is the wage gap. But here's the problem with the wage gap. Now, a lot of people obviously have a lot of debates for the wage gap, and we can explain it in a lot of different ways, actually. But the fact remains that however you wanted to explain it before, and the CEOs of the top 500, Fortune 500 companies, or whatever, these are old men in the 70s, 60s. Okay, this no longer applies. And a matter of fact, a new study that researched the wages of men and women in the top 20 metropolitan areas in the United States found that women on average earn 8% more than men. This is no surprise. Women are getting more educated than men by a wide gap. So this is going to reflect in this new generation. So when we talk about the gender gap in Fortune 500 companies, it's simply because the people that are CEOs now went to school 30 years ago, 40 years ago. So it's a different generation entirely. When we address politics, this is changing. Obviously, there's more women in politics now than ever, but it's still male-dominated. However, the male-dominated political spectrum doesn't vote in favor of men's issues. And matter of fact, they're all ignored. So the fact that there's more men or more women in politics is just, it doesn't matter because the policies that are coming out are very strongly favoring women. It is now legally allowed to discriminate against men. There's not one law on the books in the United States that discriminates against women, yet there are many that discriminate against men, that apply affirmative action, that allow for financial aid and preferential treatment for women in school, even though they're still the majority. Also, there's incentives for companies to hire women over a man. Another statistic is now that adult men are more likely to live with a parent than live with a spouse or partner, while women are twice as likely to live alone and purchase a home. These are alarming statistics. They're very alarming statistics, especially if we're looking for equality. This all goes back to this legislation that it's okay to discriminate against men. Men will be okay. Men won't hurt because of these discrimination in the workplace and in the hiring process. Doesn't matter. Even in the military, where we think that now there's this equality. In reality, the standards to get into the military physically and mentally are less for women, okay? The PT tests and the PT that has to be done throughout your military career is lower for women. Why didn't we lower it for everybody? Or we have it the same for everybody? It just doesn't make sense to me because you're saying this is the job that needs to be completed and this is the physical aptitude that we need to perform this job. So why would we lower it for women? Because this reflects in military. I was in the military. I was in the army. And I can tell you that it doesn't stop at the PT test. You see this reflected in military life all the time. Because if women don't have to do as much PT, that mindset just reflects in everything. They don't have to work as hard. They don't have to do as much in a lot of different fields. Now, this doesn't apply to every woman in the military, but as far as I can tell, it is rampant. It does not make sense. And I've talked about the military in previous videos where I've outlined that women are far more likely to get a medical discharge, 500% more likely to end up with PTSD or to get injured during deployments, and far more likely to miss deployments. So it costs the money. It taxes the taxpayer more money. So I just think that, when it comes to the military, things need to change. Some of the criticism that feminists give men's rights activist group, if that's what you want to call them, is that feminism addresses men's issues. They don't, okay? You can say that feminism is about equality, but they only focus on passing legislation that gives advantages to women and penalizes men. Tell me one issue that is men-centric that has been lobbied by the female industrial complex or by, feminists in general. The only thing that men have ever benefited from that feminism has pushed was the paternity leave for men. And the only reason that was passed was for feminist-centric agenda because they wanted women to be able to go and work and have a career and not be held back by having to look after the kids. So it's like, okay, well, if dads can take paternity leave as well, women can keep on working in for the agenda. Like, anything that only applies to men, they're not going to address it. And anything that is called even patriarchy or whatever, if it helps women, it's not going to be lobbied against. It's not. This is to me, It is an epidemic. And the fact that we don't address it, the fact that people are setting themselves on fire, the injustices that are happening are shocking. All we want to talk about is violence against women. Well, you know what? There's more violence against men than women. There's more men are murdered, more men are beaten, more men are assaulted, robbed, you name it. There's overall more violence against men. And even though men now get paid less and men are looked down upon, we're still the primary breadwinners of the family. I don't understand it. My biggest issue with feminists is that most feminists want a family eventually. They want to get married. Yet the women that are in government that are furthering policy do not. They speak for that small minority that only wants to focus on a career, that wants to work 50 hours a week and wants to put children and family on a back burner. So why are they the spokespersons for feminism? When I see feminism telling me, oh, you're a feminist if you believe in equality, I laugh. Because I'm like, well, then tell me what you have done for us. Tell me one male-centric issue. No, when they're talking about breast cancer, they couldn't even attach prostate cancer. More men die every year of prostate cancer than women of breast cancer. Yet it's never attached. We got ribbons and all this stuff. Listen, I don't think that to bring up male issues, we have to push down female issues. But I do not believe that the feminists of today are the same of 20 years ago. We've created a machine, and I say we, because in government, men have pushed this agenda forward, okay? It's not just women. And we've created this monster that needs to keep being fed. That's in every college campuses, that's in the government, pushing and lobbying for laws that are no longer necessary, okay? Women are no longer penalized. Women now have the advantage in life. They do, okay? I'm not attacking women. It's just the way it is. And this feminist machine just keep making that gap further and wider and wider and wider. And so something needs to be done. And the first thing we need to do is have awareness of this and talk about it and not feel penalized. And I'm telling you, as soon as someone meets and talks about men's issues, some woman pulls a fire alarm. Someone is accusing me of being misogynist, of being sexist, and all this other stuff. And it's like, wow. We can talk about suicide. We can talk about the discrepancies in sentencing for the same crime. Women, no, feminists will never push that agenda. They'll never talk about disparity in sentencings between men and women. Never talk about it. This is a national crisis. And it's just being ignored. And it's baffled me. I've always felt this way. But I felt like I could not address it because I would be chastised. I would be called a sexist, a misogynist, a yada yada woof woof. So I always kept it to myself. But now I recently saw this documentary, The Red Pill, and, I felt like I got to talk about it. Still, it's not getting the coverage that it should get. For Thomas Bell, this is serious, guys. There is a war on men and masculinity in this country, and it is deep-rooted, and it is dangerous, and we need to do something about it, and this is the first step. So thank you guys for tuning in and watching this video. If you can share it, subscribe to my channel, and leave a comment. Tell me your experience. Tell me some more studies, some statistics, and what you think, and how we can achieve this. And I want to keep in mind, I'm not anti-woman, okay? I think we can exalt men's issues, and we can address men's issues without putting down women's, okay? But this neo-feminist complex that is started is a machine that has to be stopped. It has to be stopped because it has to be fed, agapito, and it's going to just widen that gap. So thank you guys for tuning in. As always, I'm Vincent Briatore. Until tomorrow, stay strong.
Io non posso far pace con chi non la conosce. Superiore non mi sentirò, ma mi convinco che io sono il mondo, dove non smetterà mai la guerra. Sono il petrolio o quel che ne resta sottoterra. Sono le polveri sottili nell'aria, sono il controllo dell'informazione, sono la crescita del PIL nella mia nazione. È tutto nel mio nome.